Kimberly had already claimed victory in several beauty pageants and dreamed of one day becoming Miss Brazil. The young woman yearned for recognition, and her wishes came true. Unfortunately, she could no longer hear people admiring her appearance and lamenting the abrupt end to her life. They say beauty will save the world, but this is far from always the case. Sometimes, beauty can be the cause of a terrible and senseless demise. Kimberly spent the entire day visiting her friend. She rehearsed several times what she planned to tell her boyfriend that evening, whom she had been dating for 2 months. The young woman fully understood that prolonging the situation was pointless, but due to her tactful nature, she had repeatedly postponed this serious conversation. Brilliant prospects awaited her, so why limit her social circle to one person? Resolutely prepared for dialogue, Kimberly got into Raphael's car and smiled. She was unaware that her plans would not come to fruition that evening. Manacor is a municipality in Brazil's Amazonas state. It includes a city of the same name, several towns, and 7 indigenous villages. The city's population is just over 20,000 inhabitants. It sits on the Madeira River, a picturesque location with a hot tropical climate. In this small Brazilian town, Kimberly Oliveira was born on February 26, 1998. The baby girl was known from birth for her sweet face and calm demeanor. She was very close to her mother Nayla, being the only girl in a family with 2 younger brothers. From childhood, Kimberly knew that her parents and nature had gifted her with incredible beauty, as even adult men would gaze at the young schoolgirl, notable for her clear, dark eyes, sensual lips, and radiant smile. From an early age, Kimberly prepared herself to become a model when she grew up. She was a diligent student, behaved naturally in front of the camera, participated in various contests, worked in small advertising campaigns in her city, and did everything possible to make her name known. Kimberly didn't just showcase what nature had so generously bestowed upon her. She worked tirelessly on her figure, spending several hours a week in gyms, monitored her manners, and practiced proper speech. In short, she strived to do everything necessary to achieve her goal. To get noticed, Kimberly participated in beauty pageants and even won several titles. She became Miss Manacor 2019 and a finalist for Miss Amazonas. The following year, she planned to compete again in the state event to win it. Victory would pave the way to another of Kimberly's dreams, participating in the Miss Brazil contest and claiming a new title. At first glance, it may seem that being a beauty queen is very simple. In reality, it's just as demanding as any other job. To achieve results, beauty alone is insufficient without wealthy patrons. A girl must possess intelligence, constantly monitor her diet to prevent extra pounds from settling on her waist, and maintain her reputation. This means avoiding any scandals, watching her speech, and generally behaving in a way that sets an example for others. People who knew her always spoke of Kimberly in positive terms. She was sweet, polite, amiable in communication, and never boasted about her appearance. Kimberly was very dedicated to her pursuits, even though they consumed a lot of time. Perhaps her desire to win a beauty pageant emerged after learning that her mother Nayla had once held the Miss Manacor title, so they shared a love for all things glamorous and glitzy. Nayla provided her daughter with all kinds of support, gave her advice, and was simply there for her. Kimberly enjoyed swimming, jogging, and just working out to stay in excellent shape. Many of her sports activities were broadcast in real time. The aspiring model loved sharing her life on social media. She showed and talked about what happened behind the scenes of beauty contests. Kimberly always looked so happy that she infected her followers with positivity. The young woman had grand dreams and hopes that someday her photo would grace the covers of popular magazines. People would start recognizing her, and her name would become known throughout Brazil. And one day, they indeed started talking about her. Her photo appeared in the media not only in Brazil, but worldwide. Unfortunately, it was for an entirely different reason. and she could no longer know about it, as Kimberly Karen Moto Oliveira's life ended in an instant. Friends, over 90% of viewers watch videos without subscribing to the channel. Check if you're subscribed. If not, please be so kind as to subscribe to the channel to support me. In 2019, Kimberly had to leave her hometown of Manacor, where her family and friends remained. She journeyed to another Brazilian city called Manaus to enroll in university. Manaus was situated 206 miles from Manacor and was the nearest major city to the Amazonas state capital. Over 2 million people resided there. As frightening as it was for Kimberly to depart her quiet homeland, family, and friends, she realized that a larger city would offer far more opportunities to fulfill her aspirations. The young woman planned to study dentistry and was prepared to make sacrifices to build her own future. Yes, she dreamed of becoming Miss Brazil, but alongside this, she wanted to establish another career in healthcare, understanding that beauty isn't eternal and education is essential in any case to remain in demand. Kimberly's uncle, Henry, her mother's brother, lived in Manaus, close to the university, so she decided to stay with him. She had always communicated well with Henry and felt very comfortable around him. The move, university classes, new friends, all of this made Kimberly feel very excited. She sensed that her life was reaching a new level. It was during this time that Kimberly met 31-year-old Rafael Fernandez Rodriguez. One evening after classes, the student was relaxing with her friends at a nightclub when an attractive guy approached her. Rafael, originally from the municipality of São Bernardo do Campo in the southeastern Brazilian state of São Paulo, was the only son of Fatima and Nilton Rodriguez. He had moved to Manaus in 2017. Before this, he had gone through a divorce and simply wanted a change of scenery. Moreover, the young man had secured a new job that provided him with a good, stable income. He worked at the local court as a labor dispute lawyer. Rafael rented an apartment in a residential complex in downtown Manaus. Rafael was almost 10 years older than Kimberly, and in fact, this person already knew well who this girl was, as he had been following her on social media for some time. Kimberly was quite open on her page. She talked about herself, beauty pageants, her family, workouts, and everything she found interesting. Her number of followers was constantly growing. Some even felt they had known Kimberly for years. Rafael somehow stumbled upon Kimberly Karen Moto Oliveira's social media account. He knew almost everything about the girl, while she knew absolutely nothing about her new acquaintance. When Kimberly was relaxing with friends at the nightclub that evening, Rafael recognized her immediately. He approached to introduce himself and offered to treat the student to something. But the girl declined, citing that she wasn't alone and didn't need anything. Essentially, she rejected the young man, but did so very politely. Rafael didn't confess to Kimberly that he already knew who she was and that he followed her on social media. He behaved as if he was seeing her for the first time. The girl instantly forgot about the man who had shown her attention. She was accustomed to people constantly approaching her to get acquainted. However, Rafael didn't accept no as an answer. A few days after meeting at the club, he began flooding her with likes on her photos and sending numerous personal messages requesting a meeting. Then Rafael somehow managed to obtain Kimberly's number and started sending her messages on WhatsApp. The spam attack continued until the student responded. The two began communicating via messages. Then came a moment when they decided to meet and get acquainted in person. Rafael and Kimberly continued friendly communication, getting to know each other, until March 2020, when they finally officially declared themselves a couple. And from that moment, Kimberly's life changed drastically. As is often the case, everything looked fine from the outside, but in the first months of their relationship, the girl complained to her friends that Rafael turned out to be quite different from how she had initially imagined. Upon becoming an official couple with him, she discerned his true nature. Rafael was very jealous and extremely toxic in some situations. He often displayed possessive traits. The man checked her phone, looked through photos, apps, contacts, doing everything to deprive Kimberly of personal space. He constantly disliked who she talked to, what photos she took, who wrote to her on social media. They had only just started dating, but the man kept all of his girlfriend's communication under complete control. The wildest part was that she gave him no reason for this, but Raphael continued to behave very aggressively. It got to the point where he forbade her from having male friends and publishing certain things on social media. Every time they met, he interrogated Kimberly about where she had been, what she had been doing, who she had talked to. Raphael wanted to control every aspect of her life. At that point, they had been dating for only 2 months, and Kimberly confided in friends that she couldn't endure it much longer. She deemed Raphael's behavior towards her completely insane. She no longer wanted to waste her life interacting with a toxic individual. The young woman decided to break up and was waiting for the right moment to tell her boyfriend. At the time, Kimberly was just 22 years old. She felt suffocated by the total control from her partner. She was amazed at how she could have fallen for his words and not noticed the warning signs in his behavior. She was genuinely tired of this romance. A brilliant future awaited her ahead. A career in dentistry, victories in beauty pageants, work as a model, and much more. Kimberly didn't want some man to ruin her plans and undermine her self-belief. She didn't want to be controlled and manipulated. She didn't wish for her world to be limited to one person. The couple argued constantly. Raphael always tried to make amends with gifts, flowers, and trips to expensive restaurants, but this was only a temporary solution to the problem. Deep down, Kimberly knew their relationship had no future, and no dinners or presents could save it. On Sunday, May 10th, Mother's Day was celebrated in Brazil. Kimberly was a bit upset in the morning because her studies had forced her to stay in Manaus instead of returning home to congratulate her mother on the holiday. The young woman really wanted to spend this beautiful day with the person closest to her. But since she didn't have that opportunity, Kimberly posted a photo of herself with her mother on her social media page and wrote a tender message. "There's no love like ours. No words can express the admiration I feel for you. Thank you for always being there for me. I love you and miss you very much." This sweet message once again highlighted the touching relationship between daughter and mother. After Kimberly published the post, she continued her morning by going for a run with her Uncle Henry and his friend. Later, her boyfriend, Raphael, joined them. The group of health enthusiasts headed towards the nearest park. Everything seemed fine between Kimberly and Raphael. They weren't arguing and both appeared to be in good spirits. After the morning run, the niece told her uncle that she planned to spend the day with one of her friends and that she would let him know later what time she'd return home. However, around 10:30 in the evening, Kimberly messaged her uncle to leave the front door unlocked because she had forgotten her keys. The young woman still had plans for the evening. She had been preparing all day for serious conversations with her boyfriend and didn't want to bother Henry unnecessarily. The uncle read the message from his niece and did as she asked, then went to bed. Waking up the next morning, Henry realized that Kimberly had not made it home. According to him, this was very unusual, as the young woman always did what she said she would. And this time, she had clearly indicated that she didn't intend to stay with her friend or with Raphael. The uncle immediately had a very bad feeling. Kimberly, knowing how her loved ones worried about her, always kept her mother and uncle informed of her whereabouts. But now, Henry had no idea where she was or what had happened. He tried calling his niece several times, but got no answer. The man also dialed Raphael's number, but again, no one answered the call. Additionally, Kimberly's friend contacted him and said she also couldn't reach her and was worried about where she had disappeared to. They had agreed that Kimberly would call her and tell her how the conversation with Raphael went. Concerned, Henry got in his car and drove straight to Raphael's apartment to find out why these two were ignoring calls. But no one was there either. The uncle knocked on the door and tried calling again, but it was all in vain. At that moment, Henry decided that something bad had happened to both of them and went directly from his niece's boyfriend's apartment to the police station, reporting that these two had gone missing. However, the police were of no help. Kimberly was 22. Raphael was 31. At the station, they thought both were old enough and there was no reason to raise alarm. Perhaps the loving couple decided to take an unplanned getaway somewhere secluded, and they didn't want to be disturbed. In any case, they were adults and had the right to do whatever they pleased. However, Henry knew that Kimberly would never make her family worry by leaving without saying a word. The man called his sister and told her what had happened. Nayla, Kimberly's mother, was battling cancer at the time. Her condition was already not the best, and worrying about her beloved daughter made it even worse. However, the woman gathered her willpower, forbade herself to think about the worst. Although other relatives supported Henry's concerns, since the police refused to take any action, they decided to act on their own. The family began sharing photos of Kimberly and Raphael on all social media platforms, asking people to report the whereabouts of the young couple. They hoped that followers might have accidentally seen the girl and her boyfriend somewhere. Although they feared that the two might be in some danger, they still hoped they would be found safe and sound. Unfortunately, this didn't happen. After some time, the authorities finally decided to take action, and on May 12th, around 4:30 a.m., a body was found. The police broke into Rafael Rodriguez's apartment in search of any clues that might indicate where the lovers had gone. When officers entered the master bedroom, they discovered Kimberly's body. She was lying in a pool of blood on the floor, covered with a sheet. Several stab wounds were found on her body, one to the chest and two to the neck area. Preliminary data suggested the girl had been dead for about 4 hours. It was a horrifying scene. Bloody trails led through all the rooms. As detectives surveyed the rented apartment, they found the murder weapon. It was a long kitchen knife lying on the balcony. It had bloody fingerprints on it. The knife was immediately sent to the lab for analysis. Officers also noticed that the apartment was very cold because someone had left the air conditioner on. This was likely done to slow the decomposition of the dead body and mask the emerging odor. Although the police found Kimberly in Raphael's apartment, the owner himself was nowhere to be seen. If initially he was also considered missing, now he became the prime suspect. After the knife was sent to the forensic lab, it became clear that the fingerprints on the murder weapon belonged to none other than Rafael Rodriguez, the deceased girl's boyfriend. His photograph was immediately published on all social media platforms. Police urged the public to report the whereabouts of this man, as he was considered dangerous. After the autopsy, Kimberly's body was transported by small plane to her hometown of Manacor. The girl was buried on May 13, 2020. About 200 people came to bid farewell to the young beauty. People expressed condolences to the deceased's relatives. This day was difficult for everyone. Saying goodbye to someone who had their whole life ahead of them, all the opportunities to achieve something, is very hard. In her hometown, many knew Kimberly because of her beauty pageant victory. There was also a traditional watermelon festival where Kimberly always performed and promoted the town event. To some extent, this girl was the pride of her city, and now she will forever remain in the hearts of the residents as a beauty queen. At the same time, followers on social media mourned her senseless and premature death. No one could understand who could raise a hand against sweet, smiling Kimberly. Law enforcement knew they needed to act quickly to find Raphael before he took the chance to flee to another country. Kimberly's friends told the police that the girl had been thinking about ending the relationship with this man, so perhaps that night she tried to break up with him. And this is what prompted the man to commit the terrible act. It's bitter to realize that the beauty's dreams were cut short in the blink of an eye, because of a man who decided that if he couldn't have this girl, no one would. The day after, on May 13th, patrol officers discovered Rafael's car in Caracaray, about 370 miles from Manaus. According to road camera data, the man had been driving at such high speed that he lost control and crashed. While taking a sharp turn, the vehicle flew off the road and overturned. Since the white Audi was in a wrecked state and the driver himself was nowhere to be seen, he had either left the crash site on foot or been picked up by a passing vehicle. It's unknown if Rafael was injured in the car accident, but his car was a heap of twisted metal. Traffic police found that after the accident, Rafael was picked up by another driver and taken to the nearest settlement. There, Rafael called a taxi, went to the bank, and withdrew some cash. He then headed to Boa Vista, a city near the Venezuelan border. Detectives believed the man planned to flee Brazil and hide in Venezuela. They immediately headed to the border, spoke with authorities, and confirmed their suspicions. Rafael indeed tried to cross the border, but fortunately, he was denied entry. His attempt was recorded thanks to a medical checkpoint set up due to the pandemic. The man realized his plan had failed and disappeared into the nearest forest. So now the police focused their search on the wooded area. Meanwhile, on May 14th, surveillance footage from the night of the girl's disappearance was discovered. The recordings clearly show Rafael picking up Kimberly in his white Audi from her friend's house, where she had spent the whole day. Another video shows them approaching Rafael's apartment together around 11 p.m. Before that, they were also seen in the elevator. Everything looked normal. The young people weren't arguing or sorting out their relationship. They calmly went up to the right floor and entered Rafael's apartment. Then, around 1:30 a.m., Rafael left the residential complex, completely alone. He looked calm and very composed, showing no signs that he had just committed a serious crime. No worry, no guilt or shame. His face reflected absolutely nothing. From the outside, it seemed like the guy had just left his own apartment in the middle of the night and was simply going about his business. Except Kimberly was never able to leave his apartment after their conversation about breaking up. Meanwhile, a search party near the Venezuelan border received intel about Rafael's suspected hideout. They found a man concealed in a makeshift shelter in the woods. It appeared as if this guy intended to reside there until the investigation ceased. Before law enforcement could apprehend him, 6 individuals Rafael had hired as private security attacked them. These were random people Rafael had paid a hefty sum to protect him from assault. These guards took their security job very seriously. Armed with machetes, they nearly attacked the authorities. The outcome was uncertain until the police explained the gravity of the situation to the guards. They revealed that Rafael was suspected of brutally murdering his girlfriend and that, by obstructing his arrest, these people were becoming accomplices. Naturally, no one wanted to risk themselves for a stranger, especially a criminal. They hadn't even realized the man who paid them well was evading law enforcement. The guards immediately surrendered their positions, and Rafael Rodriguez was arrested and taken into custody. It also turned out that 2 of his hired men, local residents aged 24 and 17, had helped him hide in the forest, so they were also arrested for aiding in his concealment. After his arrest, Rafael seemed to transform. All his composure vanished. He confessed to the horrific crime and told the police everything that transpired on the night Kimberly stopped responding to calls. Here's what he divulged to the detectives. Late in the evening, Rafael picked up Kimberly from her friend's house, and they both headed to his apartment. There, the couple was having a good time. Everything was great. At some point, the girl decided to take a shower, and Rafael used her absence to check Kimberly's phone, which she had left in the bedroom. The young man wanted to see who she had been communicating with in his absence. With familiar gestures, Rafael began opening apps and browsing through all messages, notifications, and contacts. Then he came across something that literally set him off. Rafael claimed he discovered messages from men. He became very angry because he didn't want his girlfriend to have male friends or chat with any strangers. He decided to confront Kimberly, but before that, he went to the kitchen, grabbed the largest kitchen knife, and hid it behind his back. When the girl came out of the shower and lay down on the bed next to Raphael, he started questioning her about what he saw on her phone. According to Raphael, Kimberly lied to his face and said she had no relationships with any of these men. They were just messages sent to her, but she ignored them and paid no attention. Because of this lie, Raphael exploded, pulled out the knife, and began stabbing the girl lying on her back. He plunged the knife into Kimberly's neck and chest several times. She died from these wounds. It's impossible to imagine what the poor girl felt at that moment. A second ago, she was relaxing on the bed next to her boyfriend. And then, he pulled a knife from behind his back and carried out a brutal attack, accusing her of something she hadn't done. Kimberly must have been caught off guard and didn't even have time to process what was happening when her soul left her body. At the same time, Raphael claimed he loved Kimberly very much. How then could he raise his hand against his girlfriend over some messages? How could he do such a terrible thing to her and then simply leave the body under a sheet and drive away? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you like this video, it's really important. The trial of Raphael was postponed due to the pandemic. The defense claimed their client had a mental disorder that rendered him unfit to stand trial. These assertions led to Raphael undergoing several evaluations. Eventually, it was determined that he was competent to face legal consequences for his actions. On October 27, 2021, the court proceedings began. The prosecution called several witnesses, presented DNA evidence, and surveillance camera footage. The prosecutor detailed Raphael's alleged sequence of actions that night. After killing Kimberly Oliveira, Raphael attempted to move her body and dispose of it, or at least conceal it. But he panicked upon realizing blood was literally everywhere. The lifeless body proved too heavy to discreetly remove from the apartment, which was out of the question. Raphael couldn't think rationally at that moment, so he phoned his father, 60-year-old Nilton Rodriguez, and confessed everything he had just done. His father silently listened to his son's horrific monologue and advised Raphael to urgently call the police or immediately turn himself in at the station. But the young man told him he couldn't surrender. Instead, he decided to flee to Spain. Leaving the apartment, he left the air conditioner running to mask traces of the crime. Then he got into his car, a white Audi, and headed towards the Venezuelan border to get to Spain from there. Along the way, he discarded Kimberly's mobile phone in some wooded area. He hoped this would throw the police off his trail if they tried to track the mobile. Due to his distress, Raphael didn't notice a turn in time and the vehicle veered off the highway. Surprisingly, he was barely harmed, escaping with just a couple of bruises and scratches. Then Raphael hitchhiked to the nearest town and took a taxi to the bank to withdraw some cash. Afterward, he headed to Boa Vista. When denied entry into Venezuela, he hid in a makeshift forest shelter after hiring security. Raphael claimed he did all this in a moment of anger, not out of jealousy, but because Kimberly lied to his face. Only those close to the girl could guess what really happened. That night, she likely suggested ending their relationship, and Raphael decided that if he couldn't have her, no one would. On October 28, 2021, Raphael was sentenced to just 14 years in prison. Is a young, beautiful woman's life truly worth only a few years behind bars? On the day the verdict was announced, Kimberly's mother passed away from leukemia. Throughout the trial, Nail's condition had steadily worsened. The woman had been battling cancer for a long time. She found strength to fight the illness until justice was served for her daughter. But as soon as the sentence was read, her body simply let go. And within hours, she died. Grief-stricken and exhausted by illness, the woman attended all court proceedings via video chat from the hospital. When the trial ended, she seemed to hurry to leave this earth to reunite with her beloved daughter. But these aren't all the deaths Raphael Rodriguez is responsible for. his father, 60-year-old Nilton Rodriguez, took his own life by jumping in front of a train the day his son was arrested. He was ashamed of Rafael and for raising a monster. He never recovered after that phone call. However, Rafael's mother, Fatima, expressed her opinion on the matter and stated it was nothing more than an accident. Her husband had been suffering from high blood pressure and was very anxious about his son's arrest. That day, he was on the railway platform when he felt unwell and allegedly accidentally fell onto the tracks in front of a passing train. But many people are certain that Nilton took his own life, unable to cope with the situation. Kimberly's two younger brothers had to endure 2 deaths of their closest family members. First, they lost their older sister, and then, following her, their mother passed away. Before they could recover from one tragedy, they faced another, equally terrible one. Rafael destroyed so many lives in an instant, but his mother said in her statement that she wouldn't condemn her son. Others had done that without her. He had already begun to pay for the mistake he made. Rafael is Fatima's only son. He didn't smoke or use prohibited substances, but he had an irresistible, all-consuming love for this girl, and he was blinded. These are his mother's words. However, no matter how strong the love might have been, it in no way justified what he did. Fatima further assured that her son was a calm, balanced guy who everyone liked. She had witnessed his past relationships, and he had never shown jealousy or attempted to control another person, let alone raise a hand against a loved one. All her claims were refuted by Rafael's former partner, who testified in court as a witness. She said their relationship ended because of how jealous Rafael was and how he displayed possessive traits. Apparently, the mother didn't know her son as well as she thought. This process also took a toll on her health. In 2019, Fatima was diagnosed with breast cancer. She was left completely alone, without the support of her husband and son, and she's having a difficult time. In most people's opinion, Rafael got off too lightly for his crime. 14 years in prison isn't such a long time for someone's life. Nevertheless, in 2023, his sentence was effectively reduced by another 8 months. Rafael's defense filed an appeal citing an error in entering the verdict, and the judge accepted it, reducing the prison term by 8 months. This enraged many people, making them feel that Kimberly Oliveira's case wasn't taken seriously for some reason. But what can be done if these are the laws? The court considered that Rafael acted on emotions and couldn't control himself at that moment. Unfortunately, the beautiful girl couldn't foresee the consequences awaiting her after breaking up with her boyfriend who, instead of letting go, decided to settle the score, and instead of expected freedom, Kimberly lost everything at once, including her own life. External beauty helps attract people, internal beauty keeps them. Kimberly was beautiful both externally and internally. It's a pity that this beauty became the reason for her demise. This is the end of the story. Like the video and leave your thoughts in the comments. This was Jeremy. See you soon.